Okay, so now that you've seen the actual sliding entrances that I use, I am going to show you how I designed them. I'm using an application called FreeCAD. It's the latest version. It's 18.4. And I've got it loaded up here, and I've got it set on part design. So first thing I want to do is create a new sketch. So I click that icon. And in the task list here, I want to create a body. I want to create a sketch, and I want to select the XY plane and click OK. So next, I want to draw a rectangle. So I grab the rectangle tool, and I just draw a rectangle, and right click to get rid of that. Now I want to center this rectangle on the XY plane. So I grab the two top corners and the center axis, and I click these double arrows here to create an equal symmetry. And I want to do the same for the vertical, so I click the two end corners and the center line and click the symmetry button. And that has made the rectangle evenly spaced on the XY plane. So now I want to give it a length, so I want to click the two top corners, and I want to select the horizontal distance between 2 points. So I want to do 150, and I'm going to zoom that out a bit. Then I want to set the vertical distance. So I use the vertical distance button and set that to 20. And now that rectangle has turned green, it means that all the connections are good and that it's usable. So over here on the task list, I'm just going to click close. And now I want to click the pad or extrude function. And I want to set the thickness of that to 3 millimeters. So I just enter 3, click OK. So there's the beginning of the sliding entrance. So the next thing I want to do is click on that pad. I want to create a new sketch. I want to select the rectangle tool again. And I just want to roughly draw a rectangle out there. So now this can't be centered because it's going to be offset. So I'm just going to set the size. So the horizontal length is going to be 106 millimeters. Click OK. And the vertical height, I want to set it to 12 millimeters. Now I want this new rectangle to be even with the bottom of the original pad. So I want to click the bottom corner. I want to click that center line. And I want to set that height at exactly 10 millimeters. And then I want to fix the distance from the center line of this rectangle. So I want to click the top corner, the center line, and I want to set the horizontal distance to 40 millimeters. And now you see that's turned green, it's fully constrained. We'll click close. Now I want to make this a hole, so I want to click the pocket function on the task list. So click pocket. We'll make it the same thickness as the original pad, so 3 millimeters, and click OK. So there we have the entrance for the bees to go in and out. So the next thing I want to do is build onto this the portion that allows the sliding gate to function. So I want to click this pad. I want to create a sketch. I'm back to the rectangle tool. And I'm going to draw a rectangle at the top. And I'm going to draw a rectangle on the bottom left. And I'm going to draw a rectangle on the bottom right. Now this top rectangle, I can center it, so I can click the two top corners, the center axis, and create a symmetry. Now I want to set this new rectangle's length to be the same length as the original pad, so I want to set that to 150. I want to set the height of this rectangle to be 2 millimeters. And these dimensions, if you hover the mouse over it and it turns yellow, you can just drag the dimensions around. Okay, so now we move on to this rectangle here in the bottom left. So we want to make this rectangle exactly 35 millimeters. And we want to click the two outside corners and make it 2 millimeters thick. And because I want this even with the original pad, I want to click the bottom corner and the center line. I want to set that to 10 millimeters. And one last dimension on here. Just pull them down. Is I want to click that outside corner. I want to click the vertical center line, and I want to set a distance of exactly 75 millimeters. Okay, so that's ready. And we can grab that and pull it down there. And so for the last rectangle, we're going to set the horizontal distance there to 9 millimeters. We're going to set the vertical height of that to 2 millimeters. And again, we want this new rectangle to be even with the original pad. So we'll grab the bottom corner and the center line. We're going to set that to exactly 10 millimeters. And then again, we're going to grab that bottom corner and the center line. And we're going to set that distance to exactly 75 millimeters. Right, and there's one more, because it didn't turn green, there's one more dimension I didn't do, and that's for the top rectangle. So I want to grab that outside corner and that center line, and I want to set that to 10 millimeters. There we go. So now you see that's all turned green, so that's fully constrained. We can click close. Want to pad that and make that 2 millimeters high. Click OK. And now you can see we have the beginnings of the guides for the sliding portion. Now, before I finish those, I want to click the original pad. I want to create a sketch. And back to the rectangle tool. Let's just blow this up a little bit here. Create a rectangle at this end. So I want to grab that outside corners and the center line. Center that. And I want to make that a height of 15.5 because that's the distance between the two vertical bars that we just put in there. And we want to set this to a width of 1 millimeter. And again, we want to set the distance from the center to the end to 75. And that's fully constrained, so we can close that. We're going to pad that piece and make it 2 millimeters. And if you have a look at that now, you'll see that have this little bar in the end, and that is basically there to prevent the slide from being pushed right out that end. It's basically a stop. So now we're going to finish the guides. So I want to click the top of this 2mm bar and click create a sketch. Back to the rectangle tool. Create a rectangle there. Create a rectangle there. Create a rectangle there. Okay, so once again, we're going to center this top rectangle. We're going to give it a length of 150 millimeters. We're going to give it a new height of 4 millimeters. And I'm not going to forget this time, I'm going to set the distance from the top of that rectangle to the center to 10 millimeters. And then we'll move on to this one. It's exactly the same as the last one that we did. So set the length to 35. We're going to set this height to 4 millimeters. Just going to grab those and drag them out of the way. Grab that bottom corner, select the center, set that height to 10 millimeters. And we're going to grab that outside corner again and the vertical center line. Set that distance to 75. Okay, last rectangle. We're going to grab the top two corners and give it a length of 9 millimeters. Again, we're going to set this to 4 millimeters in height. And grab that bottom corner in the center line, set that to exactly 10 millimeters. And then that bottom corner again and the center line, and set that to 75. There, it's turned green, fully constrained, we're good to go. So click close. Now I want to pad those rectangles. I want to make them 2 millimeters thick. All right, now we have a look at it. Now we have our rails for the sliding portion to move back and forth in. So now there's an issue with this being open across the bottom here. You put your slide in there, it may droop down and it won't slide smoothly back and forth. So what we have to do is put a base in here. So I'm going to click the center of that drawing there. I'm going to create a sketch. You're going to see it flip around and sort of disappear. So we're just going to angle that sketch a little bit, zoom in on it. We want the rectangle tool. And we're going to draw a rectangle there. So I want this rectangle to be even with that center line. So I'm going to click one of those bottom corners, doesn't matter which one, the center line. And now I want to select this fix a length option. So click that and set that to 0. Grab that bottom corner, select the middle, and set that to 10 millimeters. Now we can set the width of that rectangle to 2 millimeters to match up with the rest of it. And we're going to set the height of that rectangle to 7 millimeters. Now you can see that's fully constrained. It's turned green, so we can close that. And we want to pad that. Now, this opening was 106 millimeters, so we want to make that bar the same length, 106 millimeters. Click OK. And now we have a flat area for the bottom of the slide to move back and forth across. One additional feature that I like to do is grab this top corner of the bar, hold down the control key, grab the other top corner of the bar, and then I want to select this chamfer icon, and I want to set that to 1.6 millimeters, and click OK. And that sort of gives a little ramp effect on both sides. I don't know that makes any difference to the bees because it's going to be a very tiny part anyway, but I just like doing that. You can do that if you want. You don't have to. So the next thing we have to do is make something to be able to fasten this to your hive. So I want to click the pad there. I want to create a sketch. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit. I want to click the circle sketcher function. And I just want to draw a circle right in there. Now I want the circle to be on the center line. So I'll grab the center of that circle, the center line, and once again I'll fix the length of a line with that icon and set that to 0. You can see that's jumped into the center. Now I want to set the size of that circle by going to, well, pull down, by going to this constrain an arc or circle function. And I want to set that to 1.5 millimeters. And that will actually give me a 3 millimeter hole. And the last thing I want to do is click the center of the circle and that center line and set that distance to exactly 70 millimeters. So that circle is now evenly spaced between this edge here and this face of the stop. So I can click close. Now, because I want it to be a hole, I'm going to click the pocket. And now we have a hole there. Now, instead of drawing another hole at the other end, there's, excuse me, I'm going to click OK. There's another function here that we can use to create a hole very quickly. So click this create a mirrored feature. We want to click this pocket 1 because I know that's the last hole that was made. So we click OK. Boom, we have another hole. And we just have to click OK. Now I want to taper these holes so I can put a tapered head wood screw in there. So I want to grab the top of that hole, hold down the control key, and I'm going to grab the top of that hole. And I want to go up here to the chamfer function. So I click the chamfer, and I want to make that 2 millimeters, and click OK. Now I have a tapered screw hole that will take a tapered wood screw. And these tapers should be deep enough so that the wood screw will sit below the head, the top of the wood screw will sit below the surface of this pad. You don't want the screws sticking up above because then the slide, when you put it in the end, will not slide easily past the screws. You want the screws to be slightly below the surface of this area. So that's pretty much it for the sliding portion of it. The only other thing I like to do, and this doesn't have anything to do with its form or function, it only has to do with 3D printing. I create another sketch and I select this slot tool. And right in here, I create a slotted portion. Blow that up a bit. I want to put it on the center line, so I grab the fix a length or line, set that to 0, and I want to set this length here to 10 millimeters. And I want to set the width to 10 millimeters. And I want to set the distance from the center line to, I have to look at it here, 48. And that should give even distance between this end of this loop and the screw head. And again, from this end of the loop to the opening. So that's fully constrained. Click close. I want to pocket that, make it 3 millimeters, and click OK. So all this hole does is makes the printer use less plastic and takes less time to print the part. And that's all that it's there for. It has no other function other than printing. So now we have the complete guide and opening piece. We want to be able to set that up in our 3D printer. So click Part Design, click the Mesh Design function, go up under Meshes, we create a mesh from the shape, and we just highlight all of those parts, click Standard, click OK. If you look over in the task list under the Model tab, you can see we have a bunch of mesh parts here. You can normally just right-click the bottom one, export the mesh, and I've already done this, but we can go save and just save that portion of it. Now we want to go back to part design and we want to create a new object. Okay, so create a body, create a sketch, XY plane, click OK. I want to grab the rectangle tool again, just roughly draw a rectangle. I'm going to do the same thing as before. I'm going to click those two top corners in the center line, and I'm going to center it. Why my toolbars have suddenly changed, but okay, grab the two end corners, center line, and center it. And I'm going to grab there, and I'm going to grab that corner. I'll set that distance to 140 millimeters. Then I'm going to grab the two end corners. I'm going to set that height to 15.5 and close, pad. I'm setting this to 1.7 millimeters. And there's a reason I did that. When my printer prints, it sometimes extrudes a bit more plastic than what it maybe should. And so therefore, the 2 millimeter gap that I left in the gate for the slide to ride in may only be 1.9 millimeters. And so when this sliding portion gets printed out, it might be 1.8 millimeters. So this will allow, by setting this to 1.7 millimeters, it will allow it to slide easily back and forth across the across the entrance. So the only other thing I want to do is put a handle on here. So I create a sketch, grab the rectangle, and put a rectangle in the center there roughly. And then I'm going to do the centering thing again. And same for the vertical. Then I'm going to make this, and it doesn't have to be that wide. So I'm going to make it 7 millimeters. And now I don't want this to be the full width of this because then it'll interfere with the guides on the gate. So I want to set that to 11.5. Click close. And I want to pad that. And I'm just going to leave that at the 10 millimeters. Click OK. And there's your handle that you can push the gate back and forth. Now, the only other thing I want to do is grab these top two corners and put a bit of a chamfer on it. And that's it. That's the sliding portion of the entrance. Then click OK. So once again, we go to Part Design, go to Mesh Design, click on Meshes, create Mesh from Shape, highlight those parts, click Standard, click OK, click Model, right-click on the chamfer, export this mesh, and save. Hope I didn't overwrite the other one. I better save this one again. All right, now, so I want to bring up my 3D printer application. So now I can pull those two files in. And just blow them up a little bit. And there we have our complete piece ready to be printed. Now, normally this would show how much material this is going to take. And I know this is going to take about 8 meters of filament to print this out. And at roughly 13 cents a meter, oh, it's probably a little over $1 Canadian to print this. Now, I'm basing that on the price of my filament that I purchase. So for you, it might be a little different. But it's roughly going to be $1 to print that gate out. So that's it for this demonstration. Hope you got something out of this video, And hope you liked what I did here, and we hope you are all having a good day. So thank you for watching, and we'll catch you with the next one. Bye for now.